we've increased our yields by at least a third.
It's even application of water, and that's the key to raising the good crops.
This is probably the best thing that has ever happened to agriculture in Emory County. You're nuts if you don't sign up.
We have had years in the past where we were out of water in the middle of August, end of August. So fall planting was never an option in Ferron. It is now.
It's easier on equipment. You do away with furrows.
Last year I cut fourth cutting of hay that I've never cut in my life.
It's given us hope that we can manage it, we can grow. My 8 children can come back and live here.
It sounded like a godsend to me. It was something that I had to see to believe that would ever happen, because I just didn't think it'd ever take place in my lifetime, and yet here we are.
We put the right amount of water on our soils, so we have no deep percolation down into the salt layers. We have no runoff from the fields, which carries the salts into the Colorado River, which was part of this program for salinity control.
These farmers and ranchers have all benefited from a salinity control program that has lowered the salt content in the Colorado River, has improved the irrigation water supply, and increased their agricultural production. Quite impressive, but it wasn't always that way here in Ferron, Utah. This harsh, arid, southeastern region of the state was settled only because early pioneers found a way to harness the scarce water supply and channel it into flood irrigation systems that have sustained the local economy for more than 100 years.
This community was settled in the late 1800s, 1880s. And at that time I just marvel at the ingenuity of those old pioneers who, with horses and a tree trunk, created the canal systems that we have now. What a wonderful thing that has been. And we've used those for 70 years. But a problem we've always had was the canals would fill with sediment each spring when the snow would melt. And so Mill Site Reservoir was envisioned. That was also sponsored in part by the Soil Conservation District. And so the Mill Site Reservoir was created as a flood control and also as a water storage for these farmers here and for the community. And what a great thing that was for those board members to step forth and to borrow money to build that reservoir. And for the past 30 to 40 years, that has been our storage for our water system here. But we have never in the history of Ferron had a full water right. We've been able to irrigate, should be able to irrigate from April 1st to November 1st, and we're usually through prior to the sprinkling system in August and September of every year. Because of the lack of storage and because of the flood irrigation system that we had. The landowners here, the farmers, felt like if they could convert to a sprinkling system, that they would be able to increase not only their yields, but extend their water season.
We're going to hear more from those individuals in this successful irrigation efficiency project in Ferron, but for now let's introduce you to the program behind the project, the Colorado River Basin Salinity Control Program.
The Colorado River Basin encompasses much of the area of 7 states, about 1/12 of the United States. Most of the major tributaries are in the upper basin, and then the water continues downstream where much of it's put to use and ultimately flows into the Gulf of California and in part is used by Mexico. In response to the requirements of the Clean Water Act, the basin states decided they would establish numeric criteria at 3 downstream measuring points. And those 3 are in the area where Las Vegas takes its water out, where Phoenix and the Southern California users take their water out, and where the last diversion in the United States is, where Yuma and the Imperial Irrigation District take their water out. They decided to set a numeric criteria there that was at the level of salinity in 1972. The users downstream, part of them are agriculture. They use water for irrigation. There's about 4 million acres of irrigation in the total Colorado River Basin, and much of that is in the lower basin. In addition to that, many people, millions of people use the water for their domestic water supply and all the municipal needs, and the damages, when you accumulate all of that together, have been quantified at about $300 million a year. And there's a lot of unquantified damages as well that might be equally as large.
In Southern California, we have a number of problems with Colorado River salinity, one of them being that we want to reuse water. However, with the salt load coming from the Colorado River, we cannot do that without the salinity control program in place. We need the total dissolved solids of the water to be less than what they have been in the past, so that we don't have to use expensive desalting processes in Southern California to reuse water for non-potable purposes.
Central Arizona is a salt sink, if you will, because we don't have any outlets for water to go back out of the Central Arizona once it's brought in.
The U.S. is supposed to deliver water to Mexico, 1.5 million acre-feet a year. In order for them to be able to utilize that water, the salinity value has to be a factor. And under the 44 Treaty and under Minute 242, the U.S. government is supposed to deliver good quality water to Mexico that is usable for that purpose, for agricultural purposes. This, of course, the water that's delivered is for use in about 500,000 acres or hectares in Mexico, serving 2.6 million residents.
Colorado River Basin Salinity Control Forum, or let me call it the Forum, was created by the states in 1973 as an organization for the states to have a voice and work collectively with a common voice. It was created because of needs to control the salinity of the Colorado River. That was in part mandated by the Clean Water Act that was then before the Congress, and by an agreement between Mexico and the United States to control the salinity of the water going into Mexico. The forum is composed of appointees from the 7 Colorado River Basin states appointed by the governors. Each state can have up to 3 appointed members. They are often water quantity people as well as water quality people, and it's a very self-governing body that feels fairly free to speak out on issues and try and help guide and direct by consensus the program to control the salinity. The program is really interesting. It takes an awful lot of coordination because we have several federal agencies involved given major responsibilities. We also have the 7 states and their water resource leads and their water quality leads, and the program represents a tremendous amount of cooperation and integration of all of those state and federal agencies.
Bureau of Reclamation's involvement is that Reclamation has the lead responsibility within the Department of Interior for the Salinity Control Program. As the Salinity Control Program Manager, I oversee the program, which is about a $12 to $15 million a year program, and we, through a request for proposal process, request for proposals from irrigation districts and conservation districts to improve their irrigation delivery systems.
As irrigation is the single largest contributor of all the man-cost salinity sources, the USDA program has focused on irrigation system improvements.
The EQIP program is, since 1996, has been the flagship program to deliver salinity control in the Colorado River. The program is based on cost share for landowners to apply irrigation improvements that might be off-farm components, which includes pipelining, or it could be a conversion from flood irrigation type system to a more efficient sprinkler. But the first step is for that landowner to have a plan so he knows clearly what he wants to install.
The Utah Department of Agriculture and Food has the responsibility for what has come to be known as the Basin States Funds. Those funds are shared in the state of Colorado and the state of Wyoming for cost-sharing purposes in the overall program in these states. Funds are generated by the sale of hydroelectric power along the dams of the Colorado River that the states are required by the Salinity Act to participate in the cost-share program that is provided by Congress.
Our involvement's changed over the years. We've had, at one point in time, a salinity agent out in the basin who primarily was working with farmers, producers that were cooperators, helping with some of the monitoring efforts, as well as helping with training information activities relating to managing irrigation systems. better than maybe they had been before.
Salinity control is closely tied to soil erosion. So we look at projects that can minimize soil erosion and enhance vegetation. There are reseeding projects, there are designated trail projects, and there is also best management practices for road building on BLM lands.
I'd now like to tell you about the irrigation project here in Ferron and the impact that it's had not only on the landowners but also the community as a whole.
To look at the history of the project, the Bureau of Reclamation and the NRCS proposed to do a salinity project in Carbon and Emery counties, and they did the EIS and all that and held meetings. They encountered quite a bit of resistance from the farmers, and there were several concerns. Some of the farmers were older and were worried about cost. Some just didn't trust sprinklers, frankly. They didn't like to have their water in a sprinkler and thought that it wouldn't work with their crops.
And I was petrified. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then I listened to the men as they presented, and they talked about positive things. We had presenters come in and talk to us. And I discovered that we could have ARDA loan monies for 3%. And it took about one meeting, and I was devoted to underground delivery systems and above ground sprinkling.
They basically turned down the project, said they didn't want it, except for a small group of farmers in Ferron. And so we started working with them. They wanted some more information on sprinklers so they could make a decision. And so we arranged some tours where they could look at other sprinkler projects. We went to Grantsville, we went to the Uinta Basin, we went to Wayne County and visited with farmers and talked about costs and talked about effects and things like that. And the Ferron group determined that they wanted to move forward if they could. And so they talked with the NRCS, and who said, we can provide a lot of the design help with the project if you have a person who can do the legwork for us, a coordinator who could get people together and find out what laterals are interested in doing projects and help us get easements and help us do some of the more routine stuff.
Ferron City and the county, the Soil Conservation District, and even Clawson City put money into getting a project coordinator, which the county then took over the funding after about the third year and funded full time.
Basically, we invested between the canal company and the city $40,000 and came out with a plan and made a proposal for funding.
When Reclamation reviewed this proposal as part of our competitive process, we were particularly impressed by the comprehensive nature of the overall effort. We ultimately awarded just over $10.6 million to this group, chiefly to assist with the construction and installation of the off-farm pressurized pipeline.
When we ended up submitting our proposals, we were very successful, and the reason we were successful is because we did some very simple things. We followed the instructions, we read the rules, and we played by the rules, and when we did that, we were immensely successful in getting the funding.
And that's how the project got started in Ferron.
We formed our construction division, the canal company did, and we've installed the project ourselves. Nobody told us we couldn't do it, so we went ahead and did do it. You know, I don't know if we would have thought we could have done it at first, but it's just amazing when you get USDA working together, the Bureau working together, local entities, cities and agriculture communities working together, communicating, working together. It's just amazing what you can accomplish.
I think the fact that we've taken this project on ourselves has made pretty good inspectors out of us that are doing it. Yeah, we depend on it, and it's our farms that'll burn up if it fails. So we've tried to do the best we could by it, and that's helped us, I think, a great deal with the federal regulations.
One of the things they're looking for is flexibility in their system and ability to design or be involved in the design. They're also wanted some control over the type of products and the consistency in their products, because it was a multi-phase system that was going to go be put in over several years. One of the ways we're also able to work with them is we try to be really flexible, because you start digging in that ground and sometimes things change. And so by having the same men that designed it down there working with them, we were able to make quick adjustments when we had to make things change and get the fittings to make the correction, to make the changes.
One major goal we had from the start was that no one have to pump to sprinkle. So we tied 2 laterals directly into the mill site reservoir so that the land in the upper end of the valley could have pressure without pumping. One runs to the north 10 miles and one runs south 10 miles. And there's an additional 5 laterals that are fed from feeder ponds throughout our drainage here. We've got well over 150 miles of pipe installed now.
With the new pressurized irrigation system installed, let's look at the benefits, both to agriculture and the community of Ferron.
The program has allowed producers to improve their yields, make better use of their resources, see better crop quality, and we think that we're, in many cases, have demonstrated decreases in the salt loading around the basin from the implementation of these projects.
There's been times when we've been able to put 2 crops of hay up, and it's just made us become more efficient with our water resources.
It's made farming a lot different, but we get more production out of our ground. We get better stands of hay or anything else you plant. It seems like you get way better germination with the seeds.
All of our sprinkling water goes through a meter. And one of the things I noticed amongst the farm operators, they learned in a quick hurry that they knew how much water they were putting on their ground, and so they could manage their irrigation so that they could get the most benefit out of the shares that they had.
You know, as you furrow irrigate and you deep percolate the water below the root zone, that tends to leach the salts out of the blue manko shell to the surface and create this alkali and salt that eventually enters the Colorado River. And by sprinkling it, you can apply just the right amount as needed to the root zone. There is no tailwater, or what we referred to as wastewater, leaving people's farms now.
The energy crunch that we're in now with the price of fuel, biodiesel is becoming a topic here, and so we've been approached to look at maybe raising oilseed crops.
Just because of eliminating the furrows, we've gained a lot more ground on the same acreage because that is now productive, and so I get at least 1/3 more production each year in savings of water and in hay.
Now we just we depend on a 3rd crop, and we've increased our production 2 to 3 ton per acre. Normally we were getting about 5 ton to the acre with hay. Now we can get 7 and even 8 ton. 2 or 3 have said they've gotten as much as 9 ton.
Sprinklers, even in the very dry years, I have irrigated up until I was completely sick of it, till the middle of October.
We've converted to larger bells, and so a lot of new opportunities have opened up for us to market hay now. Where we used to buy it, now we're marketing it, so it's been a benefit.
My own children could operate a farm and have a job and make the farm work because it is under an irrigation system that is totally underground, completely efficient.
It's diversified the economy of Emery County. It's enhanced the agricultural industry here in this part of the county.
Benefits for others besides farmers. Of course, I mentioned that the city has enjoyed. It's really been a benefit to the metropolitan areas here in the county that their water has gone further as well, because we're all sharing the same water resources and use the same water storage structures. Downstream, we've calculated that we've removed, I think in the area of Ferron, 40,000 or more tons of salt per year from the Colorado River, which has got to be a great benefit to those that are using the water after we're done with it.
Well, the salinity, I think, is a win-win situation for all the different entities, the local producers, the fish and wildlife. It's a program where there's a piece of the pie for everybody, it seems like.
There's a lot of safety issues for kids, especially if the elementary kids walking to school every morning at home. A lot of them ditches now aren't used, they're being filled in, and I get a lot of positive comments as to potential ideas people have of making the community look better.
For one thing, you come off the Dugway out here coming into Ferron, and Ferron always looks a lot better than it used to because it's more green.
Everybody benefits from this project. The water quality is better for downstream users. I was just down to Paradise Ranch the other day to another diversion, and I remember the first time I visited that site, the water was brown and it actually smelled. Now that water is cleaned up and clear, and the smell is gone.
I take a lot of time out down that area on the weekend as far as to have some recreational pleasure time. One of my favorite places is Mill Site Reservoir and fishing that reservoir. I've seen a lot of folks from all over the country, from New Mexico, California, Florida, you name it, down there utilizing the campground facilities, playing golf. It's a wonderful place to go. I mean, if you enjoy nature and family outings, it's the place to be.
The wildlife benefit has been interesting to watch. We've always had quite a few deer up and down the creek bottom, but they're starting to spread out further into the fields. We had turkeys planted here, probably 15 years ago. They had died down to around 10. They're back up to, this year I counted, nearly 40 again. So the turkey population is coming up. They're on my farm this year. I had 3 sandhill cranes, which I haven't had on my farm before.
I think it's made more water available to the city residents, that they can do yards, gardens, and room for expansion, and yet not be in competition with us in agriculture for the water to irrigate with.
I was familiar with the Ferron area before the project, and it's very apparent that this program not only benefits water users way downstream, but it has benefited this community very significantly. Ferron is a nicer place to live, the economics are better here, it's a better environment. These same benefits are being derived and can be derived in other communities throughout the upper Colorado River Basin, where we can team up this water quality improvement program with the problems of locally created salts. When one visits the Ferron area, one's tempted to look at the sprinklers, but it's really about much more than that. This has benefited this community and makes it a better place for children and their grandchildren to live in the future. But in addition to that, it's making it a nicer place, a more sustained economy in the lower basin, because every grain of salt that gets into Ferron Creek has the potential of getting to Los Angeles or Phoenix. And we're building up a salt supply there we don't want for future generations. So it's really a people program. These benefits are intended to benefit the people of local communities and communities many hundreds of miles downstream.